Well, thank you for joining the ASCM Inland Empire 2026 webinar series, Reshaping Supply Chains with Technology. I'm Lisa Anderson, President of LMA Consulting Group and also President of ASCM, the Association of Supply Chain Management's Inland Empire chapter. Today's webinar, I'm excited to have for today's webinar on Agentic AI 101 for Supply Chain Management with Lorenz Pallhuber, co-founder of Didero. This is definitely an exciting topic in today's supply chain world, and so I'm really excited to have Lorenz with us today. He spoke at the Change ASCM annual conference, and so he comes highly referred, and we're excited about it. So Lorenz spent his career at McKinsey advising Fortune 500 companies on AI, supply chain, and procurement. He's now co-founder of Didero, working on AI systems used across complex operational environments. He holds degrees from Stanford and Cambridge. Didero is a Stanford-founded technology company building advanced AI agents to automate complex, high-volume supply chain and procurement operations, putting key source-to-pay workflows on autopilot. So definitely a hot topic in today's world. So we're going to talk a bit about, we're going to have Catherine host for the presentation. We're happy to have you put questions in the chat, and we'll also call on you to ask questions at the end of the webinar, if not, to sprinkle around. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear them. Also, we have an upcoming very exciting course tour that I wanted to make sure that I told you about up front. So if you're interested, sign up on our website, which is apex-ie.org. And we also have a URL that comes with ASCM Inland Empire. But nevertheless, just follow that link, and I'll put it in the chat as well. And you can sign up for our port tour. You need to do so soon so that we can get the reservations in with the ports ahead of time. So with that said, I'd be happy to turn this over to Lorenz, and you can tell us more about Agentic AI and how we can utilize it in our workplaces, and go from there.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to chat about this topic. For everyone, Lisa already did a very comprehensive introduction. As she mentioned, I'm one of the founders of a company called Didero, and we primarily focus on the procurement part within the kind of supply chain universe, but we're kind of expanding our surface area. I'll tell you a little bit about what we do, but what we are really here for today is explain what the heck AI agents are. I know it's a buzzword that most of you will have heard, and everyone's like, what is this? I wished I didn't have to use these buzzwords in my work, but that's the world we live in. It's actually incredibly cool technology that hopefully can make a lot of your lives easier. I'll jump in, and please, we have a relatively manageable group today, so we can actually answer questions as we go along. We don't have to wait until the end, so please feel free to jump in, and we can make this a little bit more of a lively discussion. This is just something, a couple more pieces of information about us as a business. We're really focused on building these AI automations on top of existing software, and focus on supply chains, direct spend, and have agents deployed with more than 50 companies today, most of them manufacturers or distributors. More than 600 of these agents actually live deployed across the United States. So main goals for today are three. One, we want to explain what we mean by agents. Again, it is a buzzword, and so it's important to just really take a step back and understand how this is different from other AI technology you may already be using. Two, provide you with a framework to help you prioritize, select the right use cases. Because I think a lot of people have a really hard time understanding where they could possibly start in their own organization or in their own life to utilize this technology to make their life easier. So I hope you'll walk away with a very clear decision-making framework that it can help you select your first use cases and then demonstrate. We'll talk through some real use cases from across the supply chain spectrum. I also love when people bring ideas as we go through the presentation and things come up for you and you're like, oh, would this be a good use case and good application? Please post it in the chat, raise your hand, we can talk about it. I love kind of brainstorming ideas together. But we'll start at the beginning. What are agents? And before we even go to that topic, I want to talk about the last 6 months in AI, because for anybody who doesn't work in this field, I think everything can just be one big blob. And it's very hard to make out how much is marketing, how much is hype, what's actually happening. And even I find it really hard to sometimes distinguish what is, the hype cycle versus what is actual substance. I think there's a lot of marketing. I think there's a lot of hype, but it's also kind of exceptional how much the technology has progressed in the last year. And I think sometimes it's hard to know that. And so I picked up 4 news stories or 4 stories from the last 6 months alone that kind of blew my mind personally as somebody who works in this field. The first one is from September, where we had DeepSeek, a Chinese company. One of their models wrote a research paper that ended up being published in Nature. And that's pretty incredible. You have the most prestigious journal in the world, an AI model being able to publish that. I was just reading an article yesterday about how OpenAI's latest model cracked a problem in particle physics that that people weren't able to solve previously. So the potential for scientific change, I think, is just incredible, and we're just starting to see that. Second one, again, from the field of science, AstraZeneca built an AI model that can detect more than 1,000 diseases before people ever get any symptoms. And again, the potential impact on healthcare that AI will have is so vast, and so much is happening as we speak. And even a year and a half ago, I think people would have never believed that any of the things on this page are even possible or were possible in such a short period of time. The third one is a cool news story from this year. Google created this model that allows you to upload an image, and it will create an infinite world that respects all physical laws live from that image alone. And when we think about potential use cases in the supply chain, like simulating physical processes and environments, it's really exceptional. And again, what a cool thing. You can create an infinite video game universe that is totally realistic as to how the real world would behave, and do it in the moment. And then the last one is, we all know about self-driving cars, but the impact they're having and kind of the acceleration here has been really monumental, right? 500,000 paid rides by Waymo alone per week is crazy. Let's think about where is that going to leave kind of our streets in 5 to 10 years, and what's the impact going to be on trucking, on logistics, of all of these modes of transportation that we rely on both in supply chain and in our personal lives. And again, this is really just to illustrate it's happening. And I think sometimes the rate of change can be overstated, and sometimes I think it's also hard to overstate just how much progress is being made in this field. Now, let's get to agents. Now, machines until 2017, really, when this seminal transformer model was published, which is kind of the underpinnings for all these large language models. That's this new wave of AI technology. Really were based around zeros and ones, and computers, of course, still are today. But the quantum leap that machines have made since then is the ability to deal with natural language. It's generating ideas. It's essentially the world's smartest, most advanced autocomplete. You take a context, you take what's there, and create a prediction about what should come next. And now these models have become so good that they can reason and they can plan, and now we can give them tools to actually take actions for us. And that manifests in a really incredible shift from passive to active. It's going from a chatbot that will give you information to ChatGPT that will write something for you, to then actually giving that agent the ability to take an action on your behalf based on reasoning that the agent did is really what makes it the agent, right? It's the ability to go and complete a task on your behalf using different modalities. And this is really an evolution in where automation can take us. RPA is something a lot of you might already be using in your business today. I like to compare it to kind of a subway train, red light, green light, stop or go, very fixed. It needs very uniform inputs. It's not very flexible. It breaks, it can't go even a couple of inches left or right. It really breaks very easily. Contrast that to a self-driving car. It has a million sensors. It takes context into account. Somebody steps into the street and it will swivel around that pedestrian. It's able to drop you off at your house, not 10 minutes from it. And it's able to, learn over time as it sees more situations and then will self-improve. And that's, again, one of these benefits that agents and AI models in general bring along. Now, when we talk about an agent can really be deconstructed into four key parts. At the heart of it is reasoning. It's really the ability to plan. And we'll talk about this later, there's also opportunities for agents to work together that specialize in different tasks. But at the heart of every agent, you have the brain. You have the planning tool that will decide based on some information that it gets what to do next. And what does it need for that? It needs its memory. It needs its context. And this is really a space where technology has made leaps and bounds over the last year, even the last 6 months. The context window, so the amount of information I can give to an AI model at any given time is exponentially larger than it was even months ago. And that allows us to take a lot more real-world context into account. So while AI models originally had very short memory and therefore weren't very good at long-term multitask execution or reasoning, now they can take so much context into account, and you can keep adding context that you're able to plan and act over much longer time horizons. And that's created that opportunity for those agents to take more sophisticated actions. So memory, extremely important. What information to be provided with? The body, so those are the tools. What can we give the AI to actually go and execute a task? That can be an ERP call, it can writing an email, it can be browsing a website, it can go and place a phone call, like it can even execute a financial transaction. So all of these different tools that we give it access to, it can now use. And then, of course, there are the guardrails. What are the constraints and limitations that we need to put in place to actually make sure this is safe and sound? And in most cases, we program in hard limits to make sure that agents don't, go outside their traditional and their capability boundary that we designed for them. Now, how does this work in practice? How does it actually think, right? An agent gets woken up with a trigger. When we design an agent system, we always think about what the wake up signal is, right? Why does the agent act? It can be a timer, it can be an external factor, it can be an API signal. So anything that would let the AI system realize that it needs to go and do something. It will then retrieve the information that it needs and then start reasoning, right? And that's what we discussed already. It really predicts the next action it should take based on all the information we have given it. And while a lot of you might be familiar with this concept of context engineering, which is prompt engineering, which is, hey, how do I prompt? How do I write? How do I call on an AI model so that I get the right answer? That is much less important than it used to be. It's still very important, but what has become even more important is context engineering. How do I give the AI model the right information at the right time to make the right decision? Prompt engineering is still important, but AI models have become better at understanding a user's intentions and then writing its own prompt behind the scenes to then actually go and do an action, which is what older AI models weren't very good at. Context engineering is still extremely critical. You need to be able to give the model access to the right information so it can then actually reason through the problem. It then executes its actions and then verifies its actions. Ideally, every good AI agent system should build in a clear governance mechanism that allows it to systematically track and trace everything it has done and verify whether the action was accurate or not. And then you add all of that information back into kind of a memory that the agent can draw on for future actions. And so you get what is sometimes referred to like a knowledge graph. So the agent will learn over time, just like an AI model will learn over time as you give it more examples. And just if that wasn't complex enough, you now have a variety of agents working together that are built for different purposes. So you have agents that are specifically just designed to orchestrate tasks. So they might command and control several sub-agents that are really good at specific actions. And those agents are optimized for different things. Some, just like AI models, are good at different things. Some AI models are built to be good at reasoning. Some AI models are good for video generation, very different tasks, right, that you optimize for. And so with those specialized agents, you optimize them based on the task at hand. Then you can have an orchestrator that manages and calls on different agents for different purposes. And so you can actually create a whole team of agents that work together over time to accomplish the task. So, you could take an example of in marketing from a totally different domain than supply chain management. You can have an orchestrator agent that says, hey, I'm going to plan the content calendar for my company for the week. And then you have a specialized agent that is actually going to write the copy. And the content calendar management agent will then call on the content writing agent based on the topic and the cadence it selected to go and execute that task and then retrieve it and take it to the next step in the process. And then layer number one is really how do we get agents to communicate with each other, which is one of the frontiers of technology today. And some standards are developing. The common term you will hear here is called MCP. A lot of you will know what APIs are, probably. APIs are the connectors that modern software systems have to be able to talk to each other in really structured and well-organized ways. So a modern software system has APIs to allow another system to fetch information or push information securely and consistently. MCP is the idea that we give standards for how agents communicate with each other. So if you have a sales agent on one hand, right, that helps a sales team communicating with the Didero agent, which manages supplier communication, we in the future will need a way how you can make that communication consistent and coherent, not unlike an API was able to do for previous generations of software. Today in practice, our agents communicate 99.99% of the time with another human. They don't communicate with another agent. But as agents get more traction and become more common, that will become increasingly important. Any questions so far? Otherwise, I'll keep rolling. Great. Trust and safety. So this is an extremely important topic, of course. As we give AI the ability to act, it becomes exponentially more important to put in guardrails and very clear rules and safety measures to make sure the AI only does what we want it to do. And we really think about this in three parts. There's many layers to this, but those are the three most important ones that we would draw out on. And as you think about building either your own agents in-house or as you work with partners to do this, these are really important elements to look at to make sure you have those in place because they will prevent bad things from happening. Sandboxing, that's really the idea that you need to test in a simulated non-live environment before you go out the door and actually execute let the agents run wild, so to say. We already know this. A lot of software systems today have sandboxes or development, non-production environments that allow us to test things out before we put them live. Not too dissimilar from an agent. The good thing here is we can actually create a lot of data to simulate lots of different situations and try them out and see if the agent performs as intended. Second part, human in the loop. Enormously important. How do we make sure that the right person at the right time reviews the actions of the AI and actually manages escalations and exceptions? And here, a really important part is that human in the loop processes should span a whole organization, right? They should span your whole team. It's very dangerous when people build, just vibe code, as people call it, vibe code an agent for just them as, one employee, when what you really want is standard processes and governance that span the entire team so that we can make sure that the AI consistently does the same type of work across everyone, and figuring out how you can create a really world-class, fail-safe, human-in-the-loop model that brings the human and the AI together to manage exceptions, escalations, keep the human in the loop, is something our team spends a lot of time thinking about, because our user experience at the end of the day is really just a human in the loop system. It's a task management system where agents will create tasks for the user whenever they need the user to go and take an action or supervise one of its tasks. So extremely important. And then safety guardrails. What are the limitations, the hard-coded rules that we put in place to say, hey, this is what the AI is able to do. This is where the AI needs to go and ask for permission. And this is stuff that the AI just can't do or shouldn't do. And putting very clear rules around that is critical. Abir is asking, in real life, is it worth trying to fine-tune the model versus prompting, context, and RAG? Good question. Fine-tuning, you can do some reinforcement learning. Generally speaking, for about 99% of use cases, it is not worth trying to fine-tune models today. You use gold standard models, depending on what they're good for certain tasks, and then you really work around prompt engineering, context engineering. You can do some things around knowledge graphs where you feed information back into the model for that. It's not quite fine-tuning, it's that slight bit of reinforcement learning that can be effective. But generally speaking, not really. A better way to fine-tune usually is fine-tune prompting through kind of automated prompt improvement and context improvements.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is just a model, right? How we think about the human in the loop process. It's all about reviewing and approving actions that are important enough that a human should look at them. And over time, that can change. We start with more control. When customers onboard to Didero, at the beginning, they get quite annoyed because we create all these tasks. We get so many tasks that a human needs to say, yes, I allow the agent to do this. I allow the agent to do this. But after a couple of days, they're like, okay, we get it. It works. I don't want to have to approve all of these actions anymore. Let Didero just go and do this. And then over time, we just increase the level of autonomy while always having specific rules in place. But it's all about kind of this slider. Start with more control. As you gain confidence in the system, you relinquish control for more tactical tasks to the AI. And again, that's an important part in designing an AI agent system. It should allow you to start with that control and then kind of transition to a more automated model as you gain confidence that it really works as well as a human would perform the same task. All right, use case selection. That's what we're all here for. How do we pick use cases for agents? I have 3 examples, and I would like everyone to just take a minute to think about whether they think those are good use cases for an agent. All right. Number one, 5,000 contracts for force majeure. Great use case for an agent. Why is it a great use case for an agent? Lots of unstructured data. You need to find contextual information that might be worded and phrased in different ways. But models are really good at picking out that sort of information across a very large data set. Two, interpreting CAD drawings for intent. In practice, doesn't work so well. So when you think about actually highly engineered, complex interpretation of drawings, we find that models still don't really perform as well as humans do. They may do at some point, but for now, that is a task that is much better kept in the hands of yourselves or your engineer. Same with assessing a vendor based on really complex engineering requirements. Models are not quite precise enough across, say, a 20-page RFQ to really pick out all the nuances that might be important and critical. And so as you think about where to apply it, think about areas where you have very, very clear requirements that you can lay out and specify. And then number three, investigating a $150 invoice discrepancy. I don't think anybody will be surprised to hear that that's a great use case for an agent. It's a low-value transaction. It's tactical and manual and usually involves back and forth in natural language. So a pretty good use case. You need to interpret, find an error, and then do a pretty tactical issue resolution that might involve engaging with a couple of parties in natural language. And that's exactly what AI can be really strong at. And to generalize this a little bit, where do we find use cases today are really, where's the sweet spot? It's in this digital coordination piece. And I think that's really where the AI models have enabled a whole new world of use cases. There was already a lot of AI in supply chain. It has been for a long time, right? Whether it's in planning and route optimization, those are all types of AI. Where is this new wave of AI really useful? It's anything that has to do with natural language, unstructured data, and kind of cross-people coordination, and kind of executing these kind of very high volume tasks. Physical reality, generally, there's obviously applications and a modern warehouse uses a lot of AI as well. Not always a great use case for LLMs, specifically for large language models. And then humans have never been more important for the human part of this, right? Negotiations, relationship management, all of that really important, relationship building that is the heart and soul of supplier relationships. And I was talking to someone 2 weeks ago after I gave a talk, she came up to me and she's like, Lorenz, I really miss my suppliers. And I thought it was such a nice way to say it. She's like, I spend all day updating SAP. She's like, I really miss spending more time with my vendors. And I think that's the opportunity, right? How do we empower people to spend more time doing the things that they're actually really good at and that I think are also the more enjoyable part of what we get to do. As you select use cases, I like to think about 3 suitability filters. Those are kind of like must-haves as you think about picking the right use case. 1, actionability. Can the agent actually access the tools it needs? Hey, if I need to go and access a system that the agent won't be able to access, it's not a great use case. Sounds obvious, but as you think through an SOP or a process, is AI already able to fetch all the information it needs to take an action? Sometimes you kind of have to step through the process to really understand all the different dimensions. So that's pretty important. 2, and that's critical, can we programmatically verify the results? That's another challenge with people, building their own agents. You need to systematically verify that transactions are completed correctly. And how can you do this in a systematic way that then also improves the process? And sometimes that's not very easily possible. And then the third part is around risk. Is failure manageable? Is my production plant going to explode if this doesn't happen? Will somebody die? Those are the cases where you really need to have a lot more caution. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but you need to put in a lot more human in the loop, for example, before you can allow the agent to run. And then once we've decided that something is potentially suitable, how do you prioritize? What are the areas? Again, this is not rocket science, but frequency is really important. If the process happens 3 to 5 times a week, it's probably not worth programming an agent to do it. It's just too much hassle. So you do need quite a high N for it to be, I think, worth it. Also, the more volume you have, the better the agent will become. And if you have a very small sample size or very small volume of transactions, it just never reaches that critical mass, and it might not be worth setting it up. Friction, how much do you hate doing it? Honestly, that is, I think, my number one decision-making criterion. If it seems like a waste of time, it probably is. So how do we get a machine to help us do it? And then data readiness. And that's an important point that I would like to build on, because a lot of people ask me, they're like, Lorenz, our data is terrible. We can't use AI. Actually, you can still use AI really well. One, AI models can be pretty good depending on the type of data, dealing with somewhat messy data. But two, when we group use cases, we can group them into two broad buckets. There's analysis and prediction use cases and optimization use cases. And then there are execution use cases. For the first bucket, optimization use cases, you need to look at a lot of data to make a prediction about the future. You look at demand planning or forecasting. That's an area where AI models actually haven't made quantum leaps in the last 2 years. Very often, those are machine learning. All of these tools have been applied for a really long time. You need really good data and training data for the AI to be able to make a prediction about the future. And those can be unsuitable if you don't have good data quality. However, on the execution side, I think that's really where the opportunity lies. As long as you can define a clean process, if X, then Y, or go and do this, and then this, and this, then this, and then this, I don't need a lot of training data to teach an agent how to complete this action. If anything, maybe I don't want to have any training data, because our team has been underwater and reactive, and they haven't had the time to follow the best practice process. So actually, if we trained on our old data, we wouldn't do it well. Instead, can we define a very clear, systematic, world-class process? Yes, then an agent can follow those instructions clearly and consistently. Those are really good use cases, and you don't need perfect data. When we execute a purchase order lifecycle workflow for our customers, we don't tell them what to order. We don't do the demand planning. That requires a lot of great data. But once you know what to order, all that manual handholding, that's exactly where the underlying data quality actually doesn't matter that much. We just need to instruct the agent on how to do its work, and then he can follow it as well as effectively a human can. We have a little worksheet that we're happy to send around after to people who would like to have this, so we can send this around if you like. You can also put your email address in the chat, and then I'm happy to send this as well as the slide presentation to you afterwards if you're interested. I'm also happy to send a couple of additional resources. We have a newsletter specifically about AI agent news and kind of developments for supply chain leaders, if you're interested, that we can add you to. And if you have any questions around use cases, always send them to me. As I mentioned, I love brainstorming potential applications, so don't be shy, and happy to send that all to you after. All right, last part, I promise. We're already more than halfway through. This is the shortest part of the presentation. Case studies. How does this actually work? And I've picked out 3 that I hope are interesting and that I'd love to talk to you about. One is about logistics execution, and this comes from Flexport. And I love this example, and I think it's really cool. One of my friends worked on this. And what it does, it takes a lot of different data sources into account. So Flexport built this model where the AI will monitor ports, weather, lots of different route conditions to tap these different data sources, put them into a model, and then based on what this model spits out, it will identify alternative routes and actually draft a plan. And the cool thing is it then starts executing that plan under human supervision. So not only does it, again, do the analysis, but it will actually go and take an action. And I think that's the part that's really cool. And the really big unlock here is that the whole process can run continuously all the time. You don't need what they used to have before is they had like 3 or 4 different teams, and every team creates a delay, right? You're waiting for someone else to do something, waiting for someone else to do something, waiting for someone else to do something, and over time that just compounds. And so an agent can be a really good use case where you take out those dead times where nothing happens, and you just get an end-to-end execution. They've been able to they've been testing this for specific in specific locations, and yeah, the impact's been enormous. They've been able to reduce track and trace by 80%, the manual effort that's required. Again, still human in the loop, of course. Human supervise really important actions, but it's really a lot less manual than it used to be. The second case study is from Blue Yonder, which is an end-to-end supply chain software, which you may know. And they have been working with an Australian retailer to, again, take a lot of interesting data sources to automatically adjust safety stock levels in regional hubs. And so it's a pretty similar use case. You take some signal and then you create intelligence, and then you act on that intelligence. And the impact is, again, pretty crazy when we think about decreasing safety stock levels by 20 to 25% in the warehouses where they've done this. The impact, as you know, on operational metrics, obviously huge. Reduction in stockouts, huge, and the impact on cash flow management, of course, also very significant. And then I can tell you a little bit about the work that we do. So we're really focused on taking tactical work for manufacturing and for mostly wholesale distributors of Teams plates in 3 big areas: PO management, sourcing and quoting, and AP. PO management, that is our number 1 use case today that we have live with more than 50 companies. This is all about post-PO placement execution, checking in on order acknowledgements, updating delivery dates in an ERP, confirming that the order acknowledgement matched the PO, and if it doesn't, reach back out to the supplier to ask for clarification, automatically chase vendors for documents and then add them back to the ERP, update the ERP with new delivery dates, or again, ask for updated lead times. Logistics coordination is one of the modules we're building right now. So there's a lot of this PO hand-holding that is very time-consuming today that sits between emails, PDFs, and the ERP. That's exactly our forte, and that's what we focus on. So it's all about taking that PO hand-holding off Teams' shoulders. That's kind of our use case number 1. And sorry, before I jump into 2 and 3, all of this happens in natural language. It all happens in embedded channels. People don't have to log into a vendor portal. They don't have to have an EDI connection. This happens for the perspective of everyone. You think like you're communicating with a human. And that's what makes it so powerful. People don't have to change how they work. It's already workflow embedded, mostly in email. We're also launching voice very soon. Hey, this order hasn't shipped. We don't know, or we don't know if it's shipped. The vendor is not reactive. Let us give them a call using an agent just to check in on whether this order is actually going out the door today or not. And so there's a lot of really interesting use cases to be embedded in whatever channels people use. And yeah, it's really about being, fully where people are today rather than requiring change. So people don't have to log into a vendor portal. The second big use cases are on sourcing and quoting. Here, the goal is to help teams run more competitive sourcing events with the help of an AI agent that runs through very similar steps to what a human would go through when they run a sourcing event. You take in a spec sheet or requirements, agent does a bunch of research, finds contact information, drafts an RFI, reaches out to suppliers, again, in natural language, gets quotes, and then summarizes the information. And this is really meant for commodity items, tail spend, mid spend, anything that your team's too buried or like too time constrained to spend enough attention on. That's where an agent can shine, and it really helps increase the percentage of spend that we can go and competitively go and source every 12 to 24 months. Across our customers, we see exceptional savings opportunities because people just haven't been able to tackle those categories adequately. And also when we do it, instead of reaching out to 2 or 3 vendors, we can reach out to 30 and just do things at scale that just wouldn't be possible if you did it all manually with a small team. We know that supply chain teams, procurement teams, everyone I talk to is underwater firefighting constantly. How do we create leverage for your team by giving them the tools that they deserve? And then the last part is closing out the order through the AP's process on invoice entry and matching. But that's just the start. Ultimately, obviously, there's more surface area to cover for us with the goal of helping to really empower your team members to focus on strategy and personal relationships rather than entering information into SAP, which nobody gets out of bed in the morning to do. And so that's really the goal here. Yeah, and this is live, right? I think a lot of people are also worried about what does this mean in terms of an implementation. Typically, we can have our agents deployed in 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the systems people have in place. It's very quick and easy. It's not like rolling out a Coupa or an Ariba or a big supply planning tool. We implement one agent, tackle one thing, do something that's total no regret use case. In most cases, it's that PO lifecycle ping pong. And then you tackle the next thing and the next thing. But let's just create leverage really quickly. All we need is an email account and API keys to the ERP, and the agent can start running. And the time savings are really, really meaningful. And it's really not a heavy lift. You don't have to get months of IT resources to try this out. I'll end on this point. Ultimately, what is the winning formula for agents at the moment? And of course, this is changing every day, but it's all about giving AI the ability to take actions and give them the tools they need with very, very important guardrails, be that humans in the loop and very hard-coded rules, or applying them to the right tasks. It's very important to pick partners that know this very well. We have 20 staff engineers from Stanford and Harvard that do nothing but build those specific use cases. It's very easy to build an agent that can do 60%, get it right 60% of the time, but we know in supply chain management and procurement that is not good enough. And so your objective should be to get that up there. But I also don't want to scare people. It's all about experimenting, picking a no regret use case and getting started. I think a lot of people are really worried about having to come up with some grandiose strategy, long-term roadmap. Oh, I have to do all of these different things. Start somewhere. Most people, aren't that far ahead, but people are experimenting. Don't think about, hey, I have to come up with this long-term plan. Just find something that's a no regret use case, try it out, have the right human in the loop process, and then scale it. Really start with where that annoying stuff is that holds your team back. And I think those are the best use cases. Great, that was it. You made it through on a Friday. I appreciate all of you being here. We had a question from Phil.
Let's if anyone has questions, we can always bring you in and we can ask them.
Yes, please.
And we can go on to exactly.
Yeah,
so do you want to start with the one that you're just going to talk to?
Yes, exactly. I'm going to go to Phil's question, and please if you guys want to stay informed and would like the worksheet and stuff, just post your email address in here. Phil asks, do you design a new agent for each client's use case, or do you modify a general use agent for their situation? Great question. It is the latter. We built dedicated out-of-the-box agents for specific use cases. So we build agents that are really good at managing POs or running a sourcing event or managing invoices. And then we can leverage all the learnings and all the benefits of having this rolled out from, across 50 companies. The good thing is PO lifecycle management has the same steps across every company we work with. You can customize them a lot in exactly how you, what exact process they follow. There's a lot of abilities for us to modify what you need for your specific use case. So it is the latter, but it still gives you quite a lot of flexibility. Of course, you can't do everything, but it has the benefit of being scalable and quick to roll out, and also not that expensive. If you're Walmart, probably makes sense to build something for yourself, but it's definitely not economical for most people.
Well, and I was just going to think that if we could get the, if we can send it to everybody that has attended, we should put it really posted in the archive. So if you wanted to do that, we can, that way we can share the information with the full group. That'd be great. Now what have you seen, Lorenz? Is like, what would you say is like some of I know you went through some case studies and some best use cases, and certainly AI is really changing. What would you say is like the biggest, I don't know, like the biggest issue you see clients having to overcome, or well, let's start there.
Mm-hmm. I think there is a big change management aspect, right? Just because you have the tool, as with any software, it's always about educating people in the right way, making sure people are brought along on the journey, and also, I think changing the mindset around what this technology can and cannot do. I think a lot of people get very overwhelmed with this concept of AI and, oh, it can do everything or it can do nothing. And I think it's all about being, educating people about like, where can it really make a difference? Where can we apply it? And what's the benefit of doing so? And where should we not apply it? And where is it actually not that useful? And so bringing people on this journey, educating more, encouraging experimentation and, trying things out. Again, it's very hard when the company policy is like, oh, don't do anything, don't do anything, don't do anything. I think that does not encourage the sense of, growth and, doing things in a different way and actually encouraging innovation. And so I think it is important to, foster an environment where you both bring people along on the journey, but also give them the tools to actually try things out. And I think there's always a risk to not acting as well. A lot of the, C-level execs I talk to at our clients, I think they're really seeing a competitive imperative to act. And they're like, oh, if we don't do this, well, we know our competitors are, / our customers are demanding us to do these things. And so, I think that pressure is really heating up.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just did a couple of speeches for a trade association that relates to manufacturers and rubber type production. So anyway, it's interesting because there's a lot of interest out there, and folks are trying to figure out how to do it in a way that's like you can build it over time. How would you also say like this relates to ERP? I mean, I understand the concept, but like, are you seeing like issues there? Like,
I actually see it as an opportunity. So I think there's an opportunity to, one, get people to spend less time in their ERP, and then two, augment ERPs with really cool new functionality. There are some use cases, right? ERPs are also, they have their own agents and they do their own thing. That's great, right? I mean, like in any previous generation of software, most of these ERPs have very big groups of partners and a whole ecosystem that develops around them. And agents are going to be the exact same thing, right? Sure, Oracle could theoretically build anything, but most of the products are, people still turn to the hundreds of solutions that live in the Oracle marketplace because they can be much better at certain tasks. And that's how we think about our relationship with the ERP. We think the ERP is the system of record. In many cases, it's an opportunity to stay with an ERP longer, I think, than was previously possible, because what limited ERP sometimes was just usability, speed, all these things that are really annoying in practice. Keep your ERP, but let the agent have to deal with it. I think that's a nice way to potentially avoid an expensive software upgrade, and you can augment it with tools like ours to create efficiency despite staying with an older system.
Right. So it sounds like you're not necessarily saying this exactly, but it sounds like some of the larger, the SAPs and Oracle, of course, they're going to develop some of this types of functionality over time. Doesn't mean you have to wait for it, or that you have to sometimes it can be more complicated, and so it makes sense to do it out in a different way anyway. But there's a lot of opportunities on the small and mid-size computer systems. They're not keeping up as I
would say definitely that's true. If you're on a non-top 3 ERP, that's definitely a big opportunity. And even with the larger ERPs, they're just not. Look at their software interface today. It does not shout, this is 2026 technology. NetSuite, which is what a lot of our customers use, is one of the more modern ones, and it's also not particularly user-friendly. And so there's just a lot of ways how you can also increase the usability and user experience that I think these legacy players are just not best positioned to do. I think use cases that are entirely ERP contained, are the places where they're going to start. But anything that has to deal with the messy reality, I think that's where
going out and calling
calling a vendor about a quote matter. Or
obviously that's not going to be something that that SAP builds in exactly that way, but to your point, they'll have a partner or something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a little bit how I think about it. And then the good thing is, as you also these companies are not always very fast. So if you want the latest tech, sometimes you can go somewhere else. But I'm sure they'll build a lot of exciting stuff.
Interesting. No, that's helpful. Thank you. That's in essence what I was saying. So I thought, I wonder if I was directionally correct.
We're on the same page. Yeah. And
on the same
if
page.
Anybody is interested in anything I was talking about today, or obviously thinks that their team could benefit from what we do, would love to have a conversation. Needless to say, it's easy to get started. We love to listen, and if it's a fit, it's a fit. If it's not, no problem at all. But yeah, I appreciate all of you taking the time to listen in.
No, thank you very much for speaking today with our group. For sure, this is a hot topic. Everyone is trying to figure out how to better utilize AI, and there's so many opportunities. But, I think that you've described some really, in a way, simple functions that are also meaningful. So that's awesome. We really appreciate that. And and we're going to definitely post this in the archives and post anything else that, Lorenz, that you'd like us to make sure that we share with the group, so that you all can, give it a try and let us know how it goes, because we're going to continue to have on our webinar series. You're going to be talking more about different types of technology and other supply chain trends. These days, you cannot separate supply chain from technology. So it is going to be one and the same to be for the successful companies moving forward and the successful professionals. So it's great that you all could join us today, and we look forward to having you again at our next webinar. And thank you very much, Lorenz. And let's see, we checked the chat to make sure there's no other questions here. Nope, looks like not. Is there anything else that you wanted to say to wrap up, Lorenz? Or are we good to go?
I appreciate all of you being here. I hope you have a wonderful
weekend. All right, excellent.
Thank you, Lisa.
Well, thank you all. Have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you at the port tour and on our next webinar. Thank you.
Bye-bye.